Likewise, likewise. Well, hello everybody, and I think my favourite guest is back. It's Ben. So, Ben, how are you? It's been a very interesting few weeks. I, to say the least. I get we're gonna skewer the elephant in the room first, and just because I want to get out of the way. Any comments about your very kind offer to Rupert? Anything going on there that we should know about?
Nothing, no response from Restore. So
Right.
we'll just it's
Yeah.
business as usual.
Yeah.
We set up Advance because we knew a political party was needed. We have a democratic setup. I think it's the best. It's undoubtedly the best structured political party in the United Kingdom at the moment. It might be the best structured political party ever in history. And I don't know if you remember, Richard, when I set it up, I did say at the time that it's designed to go through year after year, long after we've all gone, to keep delivering the mission statement of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland: Christian constitution, freedom, democracy, equality under the law. The way it's structured forces the party to stay on that path. And that's what we need in political, in the political field, a party that will not bend. And it's structured that way. And I think it's a phenomenal party. So we have to just keep going, and we keep
I,
going.
I agree, and I think that's exactly how I'm feeling. I think we've all put a lot of work into this, and it's, to me, it is a beautifully formed party. It really is. It's absolutely magnificent. I mean, and let's talk. Let's backtrack. Let's go back to the 7th of February, because I'm still excited about the 7th of February. I mean, and we've got to talk about this because the energy in the room at the Emmanuel Centre. I mean, obviously, you were on the platform. What did it feel like on the platform to get? Do you know what? I thought for a minute that
Yeah.
I was in a Chinese Communist Party meeting. We had that many standing ovations, and I was just I was up and down like a yo-yo. It was absolutely fantastic. Tell us how it was for you, Ben, because it was magnificent for us in the crowd.
So I had no idea what the day was going to be like. Obviously, when I walked in, I was a bit concerned about those anti-racist lot who turned out to be nothing more than a bunch of middle-aged, sort of wokey, upper middle class twits who turned up to object to us. And so they were a non-event. But I can't tell you how impressed I was, if I may, by all the people who spoke. And I was blown away by the response of those who congregated in the Emmanuel Centre. I had never expected that we would get so many standing ovations, and it wasn't. I hope you'll agree, Richard. It wasn't people feeling that they needed to stand in order to make it look good. They were just doing it absolutely because this was,
It was
you know,
spontaneous. I mean,
it was spontaneous. Yeah,
yeah. And if I can chime in, Ben, I mean, I'm very discerning in my public speakers, and sometimes you watch events, you think, yeah, I could have done better than that, and then other times you watch and you go, every single person that spoke, every single person was absolutely magnificent. It's very rare you get that. It doesn't matter what event you're at, someone will always
yeah.
kind of kill it a bit, but the tempo just went up and up and up and up. Just the farmer guy, the bowler hat farmer, the
Andy
Dave, the
Dye.
veteran.
Yeah,
Sorry, is that Andy Dye?
Andy Dye. Yeah, yeah.
Andy? Yeah, who's the veteran? Is that Andy Dye?
That was Andy Dye. Yeah.
Andy Dye. Yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing.
Para
Ex-para
Yeah,
engineer.
lives in
And
Herefordshire, like all good veterans. He lives in Herefordshire.
that's why I live in
Can
Northern
you hear
Ireland, because
me?
I'm a bad veteran. but but yeah,
Yeah.
it was absolutely magnificent, Ben, and so congratulations on that. Just for anybody that wasn't there, can you give me a summary first of all of the immigration policy, and we'll maybe ask a few questions about that once you've done that, and then we'll look at culture. But let's do the immigration
Do you mind if
policy
I
first.
do culture first,
Oh, sorry,
Richard?
yes, because that was the order you did it
Um,
in. Yeah, of course,
yeah,
absolutely, mate.
and
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
the reason I want to do culture first is because the fundamental issue that we're facing in this country is the setting aside of what it means to be British. Over the last few decades, they've hijacked what it means to be British to the point where we're denuded, and all we can point to is, well, we're sort of tolerant, we're nice, we're kind, we're generous, and that's not what being British is. There's a hell of a lot more to being British, and it's a much more, it used to be a much stronger, more self-confident outward projection of what being British means. And it's a function, obviously, of the contract. Fundamentally, it's a function of the contract that the state has with you as a British citizen and the obligations, the privileges you get and the obligations you have back to the state. That's at the heart of it, which has been set aside by the Human Rights Act and then the Equalities Act, which brought in progressive discrimination coupled with mass immigration. We actually set aside what it meant to be a British citizen. But on the back of that, also, in order to give effect to this kind of we're a nation of everywhere and therefore we're a nation of nowhere, they've traduced our history, they've traduced our national heroes, our language, our art, our buildings, our statues. Everything's been under attack. And we have to restore our culture and an understanding of who we are before, frankly, we can even make an immigration policy or certainly any economic policies or anything. We need to know who the hell we are and what it is that we are as a nation, wish to be as a nation. And that's what I was trying to do in the culture policy. And there's some very specific things that we can do in order to restore our culture and our self and our identity. And they are including but not limited to repealing the Human Rights Act so that British citizenry is not put on the same footing as everyone else in the world. Repealing the Equalities Act so that you don't get progressive discrimination against the majority of the people in this country. Repealing, which will be a subject here to your ears, repealing the withdrawal agreement, because actually it puts a border down the middle of the Irish Sea and moves Northern Ireland out of the sphere of influence and culture of the United Kingdom and into the European Union, which is antithetical to who we are. Removing the European Convention of Human Rights, which obviously goes hand in hand with the Human Rights Act, getting out of the UNHCR. All these things are bringing power back to our country so we can be our own people. And then on top of that, we've got to reacquaint ourselves with some of the things that were natural for us as children. So, for example, even though this was never mandated at schools, we all used to sing hymns, and we're going to have to sing hymns, including the national anthem. All public buildings are going to have to fly the Union flag so that we all identify with the fact that we're British, that we're not from some other country. There will be a register made of our national heroes, and they will not be allowed to have their statues toppled. They will keep their statues up and tall. We may even put Edward Colston back on his plinth because, even though he was in the slave trade, it was a perfectly reasonable legal trade at the time when he was alive. And he was a phenomenal benefactor for Bristol. If you walk around Bristol, you see Edward Colston's name everywhere. So it's stuff like that. And then other stuff like making sure that MPs and other publicly elected officials swear on the Bible so that they know that it's a Christian country. And if they don't believe in Christianity, then they swear on a neutral text, but a neutral text which recognizes and nods to our Christian constitution.
And
Um,
obviously, sorry if I could cut
yeah.
across. A neutral text does not include the Quran. The Quran is not a neutral text, so that's
No.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
an
a
unreligious
secular,
text,
yeah, a
a
secular
secular
text.
text.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
forgive me. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And um, and so we had a whole load of policies like that, specific things that we can and will do um, to make sure that we understand who we are as a people and reinforce who we are as a people. And that underpins, I talked a bit about Maggie Thatcher. Maggie Thatcher had a relatively easy job compared to what we've got. She had to fix an economy. There was no shortage of understanding of who we were as a people back in 1979. We've got a much bigger job. We've got to identify who we are first. And then on the back of that, we can make policies for defense, for the National Health Service, for housing, for the economy and everything else. But it all comes out of who we are. What do we want to be? And it won't surprise you to know that I'm also firmly of the view, and I can evidence why, that to be economically prosperous, to be prosperous, you actually need a homogenous, settled culture in a country. If you're all if you're not, if you haven't got a kind of homogenous culture, if we haven't got people assimilated into our culture as opposed to living in their cultural silos, we won't be pulling together. We won't be working to the same common goal. We all know that the best teams are not necessarily the stars from all the other best teams in the world, but a set of people who've played football or whatever it is together, understand each other, recognize each other. And one of the questions that was put to me, before I spoke was, Ben, are you a bit trepidatious about speaking today? And you'll remember I mentioned this in my speech, and I said, and I thought about it, and I thought, well, actually, I'm not trepidatious about speaking because we're a family in the room. And that attests to the point of how important it is to be of a similar culture so that you don't feel challenged. So you walk about the streets, you go to your jobs, you go to your places of worship or whatever it is, feeling absolutely secure that you're not going to be threatened in your own country. And by definition, that makes you likely to be more prosperous. It also means that because we know who we are, we will be prepared to die for our country, which makes us a much more secure country. At the moment, only 40% of the youth would sign up for the military. 60% wouldn't go to war for the country. That's because they've had their history and their self-belief and their understanding of what being British means. They've had all that set aside. So culture is at the heart of everything. And so that's the first policy that we kicked off with.
Yeah, and just cutting in on that, Ben, you were talking about the family in the room, and that family was from every tribe and tongue. There was black people, brown people,
Yeah.
Chinese people, Jewish, Christian, atheist. It wasn't this idea of this kind of, you know,
Tribalistic approach. No.
tribalistic,
Yeah.
ethnic, or either all black, all brown, all white, just
Yeah.
this identity, and somebody said to me, one of the guests said to me, oh, all politics is identity politics. And I said, no, it's actually not, because we're not about identity politics, and
No.
I think that's the danger that we've got at the minute is, and I think that Advance UK is in the Goldilocks zone. It's just right. It's not, it's not far right. It's not going playing silly identity politics with ethno nationalism or playing it on
Yeah.
the left. We're right in the sweet spot to me, and I
Do
think
you know,
that's
it's funny you use the expression Goldilocks
yeah.
because I was thinking about that the other day when Restore announced that becoming a political party. I thought, right, so you got Reform, you've got the Conservatives, you've got Restore, and you've got us, but actually we've got it just right.
I think
And
so.
Goldilocks is, the fairy tale came to my mind. The porridge is just the right temperature, the bed is just the right firmness, the chair is just the right size, and so on and so on. And I think we have. I know I say it myself, and thank you for saying it, Richard. But I
No,
think
I,
that's right.
I
Yeah,
really do. I mean, that's why when the sort of disturbance in the force happened at the weekend, I was thinking, no, no, we can't give up what we've got because it's so precious and it's so good and that's not in any way to denigrate what anybody else is doing, but just for us,
no,
what we've got is so precious and so important, and I'm so bought into it that I don't want to see it diluted by anything because I think we've got it really really right, Ben. I really do. I really
yeah.
mean that passionately, and I think that's down to you and David and the other people in leadership, and just it's a trajectory we've all been on for a long time, and it sees its fruition in Advance UK, and I'm
Yeah,
very proud of
and the
what
and
you've
the
all done.
reason, if I may say so, Richard, why I think we've got it right is because we have structured the party correctly, because it has checks and balances in place. We've got a very clear mission statement. We know how to adhere to that mission statement. All our policies need to deliver that mission statement. Everyone's buying into it, and there's a democratic process and an intellectual pool on which we pull to get the answers we need. No individual has all the answers. No one does. If you have a kind of dictatorship, you will not get the answers. You've got to be able to pull on people and carry them with you.
If you don't have a democratic party, you're not going to have a democratic government. I think it's as simple as that. And our party is completely democratic. Um, and I was a bit. I remember when I first looked at the college, I was like, I'm not sure about that. Is it going to sort of give, have entryism and all that sort of stuff? So I think I questioned you about it when we first spoke. But looking at the college working now and what they've done in producing the policy and just again just the intellectual powerhouses houses that are in that college, that it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. So again, yeah, and it's not just
Yeah,
it's not just the structure. It is the mission statement. It is the ethos. It is the and again, people talk about civic nationalism and they talk about ethno nationalism. I think what we've got is Christian cultural nationalism.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely right. You've nailed it. We're not civic nationalists. Heard someone the other day describe us as civic. We're not
No,
civic
we're not.
nationalists believe in institutions in their own right. I don't believe in institutions in their own right. I believe in our culture, who we are.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm very clear on who I am in my mind, and I want everyone in this country to feel the same about their wonderful country.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely right, absolutely. Okay, this is the big one, the immigration one. It's always a thorny issue
Yeah.
to grasp. And I'm gonna, I think after this, I'm gonna play a little video of Colonel Richard Kemp, um, talking about the issues that the country's. I don't know if you know. I'm sure you know who Richard Kemp is.
Yes,
Head of
army
national,
officer.
yeah, ex
Yeah.
head of national security and stuff. So he's a really very very clued in and plugged in guy. So for him to say the things he's saying, we should sort of sit up and listen. But if you just give us all the lowdown on the immigration again. I mean, we heard it. Everyone that was there heard it, and everyone that's watched the videos heard it. But there'll be some people who haven't heard it. So let rip, Ben. Let us know what we're going to do about this problem we've got.
So I'm doing it off memory, but
Yeah,
I
I've got
mean,
the slides if you
broadly,
want them.
yeah. What I find amazing, and great, you've got the
Yeah,
slides. Well, let's go through them. But before I start the slides, let me just say, isn't it extraordinary that even though immigration is, uh, I think you do any poll, it's up there as the most important policy that needs to be determined for the country. 80%, I think, of respondents put it at the top of their list. And not the Conservative Party, not Reform, not Restore, even though it's sort of new on the block, has come up with an integrated, holistic immigration policy, which deals not just with legal migration, but also deals with illegal migration, pulling all the threads together. And so what we've decided that what we put forward is, first of all, you've got to recognize the country is in an emergency. We've had far too many people come to this country in too short a period of time. And even with all the correct policies on culture, there will be no time
yeah,
and no ability to assimilate all these people because we're just overwhelmed. So we have to declare a state of national emergency so that we can actually take the steps that we need to take in order to give effect to our policies. Um, and the initial policy on immigration by Advance UK deals with the emergency. So we're not talking about any long-term setup, but it deals with immediately with the immediate issue. And so the first things that we're doing, actually very similarly to the culture, you can, if I do that, you can just move the slide on.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
um, so the first thing that we do is to um, repeal these acts of parliament that I mentioned before, get out of the European Convention of Human Rights, get out of the UNHCR, repeal the Human Rights Act, repeal the Equalities Act, um, and get rid of the withdrawal agreement. And you have to do all of that because you need to give Parliament the ability to take the steps it needs to take to stop the boats in the channel, for example, to deport people where they need to be deported, to detain them where they've entered the country illegally, and so on. And the withdrawal agreement is vital. We have to denounce the withdrawal agreement because, unlike Reform, when they came out with their deportation policy, they tried to keep the European Convention of Human Rights in place in Northern Ireland. They tried to step round the withdrawal agreement and the Good Friday Agreement, but you can't step round it. Northern Ireland is an integral part of the United Kingdom. And if you leave the ECHR in place over Northern Ireland, but remove it from Great Britain, then all you'll do is incentivize all illegal migrants to go to Northern Ireland. It'll be a safe haven for illegal migrants. So the withdrawal agreement has to go. And the other point I made, in the conference was that can you still hear me, Richard? You still
Yes,
there?
absolutely. Yep, yep, totally. Yep. Can
Yeah,
you hear
yeah.
me?
So the
Yep.
other, yeah. So the other point that I made in the conference was having retained restored all these powers to the United Kingdom, actually the Republic of Ireland will be looking at the UK and going, they've got the ability now to deal with illegal migration. We're still stuck in with all these stupid European laws and the European Convention of Human Rights. And by the way, the EU has its own human rights laws, which are crazy. Um, the Republic of Ireland this is a slight digression, but I think it's a really powerful point. The Republic of Ireland will look at us and say, we want to come closer to the UK. We want to leave the EU because these guys are doing the right thing. We will lead the way. It'll be a phenomenal set of steps we'll take. So preparing the groundwork with those those changes are fundamentally important. Um, so yeah, and so I mean, I've already touched on this slide
Yeah.
effectively. Bring all the power back to Parliament to
Yeah.
do what we need to do. Um, And so this is new actually since the 7th of February. We've added more to the presentation. You're quite cool, Richard. You've actually picked up the latest version. But we're going to restore power to the Lord Chancellor so that we can also sack activist judges who are not implementing what we wish to do. The Lord Chancellor used to be in a position to actually remove judges who weren't doing their job. His role was set aside. We're going to restore the Lord Chancellor. We're going to slash the size of the civil service. And just in slashing the size of the civil service, we'll prevent them from being able to step in and undermine what we're trying to do. One of the expression David Rhodes uses, which he uses so well and so accurately, is we'll keep sacking the civil service until morale improves, until performance and morale improves, which I think is a brilliant line. So we'll get them under control.
That's so David.
They keep sacking them until they do their job and morale
Yeah.
improves. And get rid of all the quangos and defund all the quangos and all those entities that pitch on behalf of illegal migrants and so on. Remove them from the landscape. So now we're getting on to the meat of it.
Yeah.
In terms of legal migration, it's always struck me as mad that just because people have been in this country for a long period of time, they automatically have the right to stay here forever. So we will cancel indefinite leave to remain. As far as people who've already been given indefinite leave to remain, we will revoke it for all those people all the way back to 2019. In other words, to get rid of the Boris wave. Now, we might make some exceptions for spouses and things, which we're looking at. We've had some, these are all draft policies. We've had some questions about spouses, and we'll be sympathetic about spouses without coming up with a policy that incentivizes people suddenly to get married so that, people can stay in the country. But the idea is to remove ILR, indefinite leave to remain, to backdate it all the way to 2019. The same with the granting of asylum, the right to stay in this country through asylum. Again, that's gone completely mad. That has to be revoked back to 2019. We've got to cease granting British citizenships to foreigners. Why is it, again, through the effluxion of time, you get a British citizenship? It's not a right, it's a privilege. And that also goes hand in hand with our culture policy. We've got to understand that you don't just get this because you've been hanging around long enough. You only get it if, you're British. Halt the granting of new work visas to people from countries other than on a new green list, which we've established. So we want to stop taking in completely unskilled labor from the depths of Punjab and beyond, who have nothing to offer to our country economically or culturally. They've got no place being in a first world country like the United Kingdom. And that doesn't, I don't mean to sound harsh, but they've nothing to offer. So that's got to stop. Only visas granted to people from green countries, countries which we are culturally similar to, which don't threaten us in any way. Cancel all visas granted to families of students. Why do students coming to this country, why are they allowed to bring their families? So all of that would be cancelled straight away. Their families will have to go home. Students who are here can finish whatever degrees they're doing. Any foreign students wishing to come to this country in the future will have to pay all their fees up front, 3 years worth of fees up front. And we won't renew work visas. We let all the work visas that we've granted play out, but we won't renew them. We'll make sure that employers have an opportunity to replace people from the British workforce rather than the easy crutch of getting people in from abroad. We make some exceptions to that for, very highly skilled, highly paid people who are actually adding to the fabric of the United Kingdom. Uh, but as a rule, work visas will not be renewed once they've expired. And so the green list is there. You can have a look, and everyone can see that it's a sensible set of countries. And we'll reverse mass migration. And how do you do that? Well, you've got to give people incentives to leave the country. Abolish all benefits for foreigners. We've got 1.5 million foreigners on benefits, which at £10,000 a head would be £15 billion that we're spending on them. That's just universal credit, okay? But also think about all the burden that they put on the NHS, housing, education. So the withdrawal of all of those freebies from foreigners, remove the right to vote from foreigners. At the moment, if you're in the United Kingdom and you're an Irish citizen or from the Commonwealth, you can vote in the general election. That cannot be right. That has to change. Otherwise, our politicians are making policies for foreigners. Only British citizens should be allowed to vote in general elections.
That's why people are talking about building airports in Pakistan and us funding it, isn't it, Ben?
Absolutely.
That's
In
what's going on
Mirpur,
there. Yeah,
in the
Mirpur,
depths
yeah.
of Punjab. I mean, a place that most Pakistanis don't know exists.
I don't want to go to. That's
I
right.
don't want to
That's
go
right.
to.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
um,
absolute.
and we've got to encourage those who are legally in the UK to go home.
Yeah,
There's nothing extreme about that. We just say, look, we've got an issue in this country. Kindly go home, and here's 3,000 quid to make it easier for
yeah.
you. A time limited incentive to go home. Um, uh, these are new points as well since the 7th of Feb. So we have to publish a migration transparency report so the country can see the data. The government has been hiding data from the people. How many people are coming in? How many people are leaving? What is their background? They talk about net migration. They never talk about the fact that more foreigners are coming in and it's actually Brits that are leaving. The gross number of people coming in, there's been a demographic shift that's taking place, which, we've got to be attuned to. We're not ethno-nationalists, but no country can deal with the kind of dramatic demographic shift that's taking place, and so on. So
Yeah,
that's
and
sort of,
I
yeah,
think if I can jump in there, Ben, I think the thing about the demographics, you know, eh, again, it's this whole idea of the Goldilocks zone. We're not ethno-nats, but at the same time, we don't want Brits to be, a put upon minority in their own country
absolutely.
in 50 years' time. And that's a fair thing to say. Do you know what I think comes through in all of this is complete fairness and moderation. And like I say, when I play the Colonel Kemp video, there's a reason I'm going to play it because I think it feeds into what Advance is doing. This is a policy that will work. A lot of stuff that I've heard, I'm not going to mention any parties, but a lot of stuff I've heard is completely unworkable and would actually lead to more problems than it would solve.
Yeah.
By some commentators and others. What we've got is something that will do the job. It's not going to be an overnight fix, but it will do the job. And
It'll pretty much do it overnight, actually,
well, yeah,
Richard.
yeah,
We
absolutely,
will
yeah, sure, yeah,
we
yeah,
will enact these overnight.
yeah,
And I tell you, the minute you withdraw benefits, the minute you give people an incentive to go home, the
yeah.
minute you say you're going to deport all illegal migrants, for everyone you goes home at our direction, 4 will leave voluntarily.
And the fact that if you're saying to people, okay, well, we're going to give you a financial incentive to go, then if you don't take the financial incentive, you're going to be, you're going to be
Well,
pretty much, yeah,
you're here
yeah,
without benefits.
yeah,
You're here without benefits, and you may have a right to be here, but that right doesn't exist beyond 2019 if you're here on indefinite leave to remain, etc. Are you with me?
yeah,
So
yeah.
there are controls there, and the other thing that we've established, I don't know if it's the next slide, but I think it's really crucial to all of this. So this is the economic aspect. It's not what I was thinking of, but in order to replace migrants in the workforce, we've got to make Brits work. We've got 4 million people on universal credit, not even looking for a job. The unemployment statistics don't pick them up. The unemployment statistics only pick up people who are looking for a job. So they keep telling us there are about 1.5 to 1.8 million people unemployed. No, there are actually more like 7 million people unemployed, 4 million not looking for a job, 1.5 million looking for a job and haven't got one, and others do a bit of work here and there, but effectively unemployed. They need to get back into full-time employment. And the way you do that is by cutting benefits for those who refuse to work. We have to institute some tough love, but also then cut taxes on the working class and middle classes so they're incentivized to come into the workforce because it's remunerative to do it. At the moment, actually, you can survive in many cases better on benefits than you can earning a half decent wage. And so we've got to change that balance. And of course, that will be massively enriching for the country because instead of paying £15,000 to someone on benefits, you'll be collecting £5,000 a head or whatever it is from them in tax. And that'll change the Exchequer's position is to £20,000 per head for everyone who comes back into the workforce. It's a massive economic boost. So it doesn't just deal with the issue of migration. It's a massive economic boost. Um,
Yeah, just on
yeah,
the welfare payments. Obviously, some people have asked about this. Some people that are, on incapacity benefits that genuinely need, So I guess it's the issue of finding a way of getting the people who are being lazy back to work. Obviously, that's really what we're talking about,
it is.
and still having a caring system for people that need help. Because I mean, I've got friends who, got disabled children. I've got friends who are disabled, and you might not see their disability, but they are in a position where they can't work. And the ones, so I guess the questions are being asked: how can that be done with compassion? Because it's like you don't want to sort of slip from one extreme to the other, where everybody's getting benefits
No,
for nothing, and then all of a sudden, people that really have difficulties can't be helped to do whatever they can do. Because some people, they've just got so much going on in their lives that they literally need the help. I guess
yeah,
that's one of the things I was going to say. The other thing on the
yes.
benefits, obviously with the AI, the massive AI layoffs that are predicted to happen, particularly in white collar jobs. Have you even thought about that yet? Has that come into your mind? How we're
Well,
going to deal with that?
we'll have to see how that plays
Mm,
out. You can only react to a problem. I think a lot of the AI stuff, it is happening. There are some
yeah,
jobs that are being made, but they've made AI into a kind of bogeyman. And I don't fully buy it at the moment that the whole economy is, everyone's going to be out of a job because of AI. I just don't buy that at the moment. But in terms of not being harsh on people, um, if you're perfectly able bodied, I think you've got to really have quite a significant mental health issue not to be asked to go back into work after 12 months. So, we're going to have a 12-month cutoff for people who are able-bodied and say you've got to get back to work. Now, there will be exceptions. We will probably make mistakes. There will be some mistakes made as we try to, sort this problem out. Um, but the mindset needs to change as at the moment people think benefits is a career option, and people have got to understand it. Benefits are there as a transitionary protection. Transitionary protection as you find another way to make yourself useful in the economy. There will be some people who are incapable of working full stop, and then they do need the protective blanket of the state. Absolutely, but they are very few,
yeah,
Richard. Not four
yeah.
million people.
Oh no, no. And I think what I was thinking more, Ben, was people that are carers that are actually caring for either disabled children, disabled spouses, disabled parents. I think that's probably an issue. But again, it's a micro issue, but I think it's just something to sort of flag up, just
Yeah.
for maybe the college to have a look at and see, okay, how can this be done with compassion for those
Well,
people, I guess.
well, one of the other things we did say when we revealed these draft policies is, we do now want members to come in with their comments and ideas so the college can consider them,
Exactly.
because this is an iterative process. Nothing is going to be firmed up until we get to 2028, and we've had lots of iterations of this and lots of but what if, and we've addressed all of that. Um, and this is the slide that I wanted to get to. This is a really important slide.
Mm.
There's got to be, if you're in this country, if you're in the United Kingdom as a guest on a visa, or indeed indefinite leave to remain, um, you cannot be doing things that are to the detriment of the country. So we've introduced the concept of a residence covenant. So you adhere to the law in all respects in our country. If you break the law, you're deported. You lose your right to be in the country. You do not engage in any activity other than the activity which is granted to you by your visa. You do not engage specifically in political activity. Many countries, by the way, have these restrictions already in place. You're not allowed to, for example, in the UAE, as a foreigner, you're not allowed to, even as a local, I think, you're not allowed to, indulge yourself in political activity. Why is it that we've got foreigners coming into our country and getting stuck into our politics and trying to change the way our politics is prosecuted? Absolutely not. That has to stop. You can't advocate for foreign countries. If you're in this country as a guest, you cannot be making the case for your country. You're here as our guest. I don't go to Pakistan and start making the case for the United Kingdom. I go to Pakistan and I respect their culture and I respect their politics and I stay out of it. I do whatever I have to do and I come home. Um, and not to proselytize, not to convert people to your ideology, not to convert people to your religion. It's not for you to do that when you're in this country. You breach those, and we've set up a new body called I can't remember, it's IEFR or something, just if you
Yeah.
go to the next slide.
Can I
The
just comment on that?
Immigration Enforcement, yeah.
Can I dive in on the proselytize one?
Yeah.
There's some great Christians that have come from Nigeria, India, all over the world, and they do proselytize. They go to
But
Speaker's Corner,
that's
and
not an
they
alien religion.
right, okay, that's fine. So
Yeah.
if they're proselytizing for Christianity, that makes
Yeah.
sense. That's fine.
We are
Yeah,
a Christian country.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. I just wanted to clarify that. I spoke to David Rhodes about that when I chatted to him after the event. I said, "What about this proselytized one?" So that's great. As long as that's clarified, brilliant. Okay, next one.
Um, and So yeah, and anyone who overstays their visa will be and doesn't go home will be regarded as an illegal migrant. Any illegal migrants in this country will be arrested, detained, and invited to leave the country. And if they don't go of their own volition, they'll be deported. And if they come from countries with which we don't have deportation agreements, we will sanction those countries, withdraw their aid, and maybe even pay them an amount of money to take their people back. You know, the Taliban, I think I made this point when I was speaking. Afghanistan and Pakistan would take back all their anyone we wish to deport for if they breach the various things that would qualify them to be deported. They'd take them all back if you offer them some money. People say you can't deport people to Afghanistan because we don't have a treaty with them. You offer up some cash. The Afghanis will take their people back.
Yeah.
And there'll be no exceptions or right of appeal. If you're found that to be, if it's adjudicated that you should be deported, you will be deported. That's it. You're a foreigner. Worst case scenario, even if we make a mistake, worst case scenario, we're sending you home.
Yeah.
That is not an extreme position for a country to take.
It's not, and I think the other thing is we are in a state of emergency. There's no doubt about that. And again, like I say, we'll play Richard Kemp's video, and it really does feed into what we're talking about. So, okay, next one. Every effort will be made to put them to their country.
Yeah, I've been through this slide.
Yeah,
Sorry,
okay, we're doing
yeah. It's
on
not quite as polished as it was when I made the speech. And then, of course, there's border enforcement. I mean, what the hell have we got our military for if it isn't to protect our borders? That's ultimately what the entire military is there to protect our borders. So the Royal Navy will be given all that it needs, fast boats, sensors, drones, barricades, special training, and directed to go and intercept these dinghies and make sure they go back to France, not to have them coming through to our waters and then being welcomed onto border force boats and RNLI, which we will make it illegal to do. We'll make it illegal, and we will arrest the RNLI if they start taking people off dinghies and bringing them back to shore. And of course, the majority of people smugglers are in Europe. They're not here, but there are some here on the receiving end of the illegal migrants who are coming across, putting them into effective slave labor once they get to the UK, and they will be targeted. And, needless to say, we'll stop wasting hundreds of millions of pounds on the French, trying to get them to enforce their borders. They've got zero incentive to do it. The less they enforce their borders, the more money we've been paying them. It's a completely crazy situation. So that has to stop.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's all top notch.
And I think
again,
that's basically our entire policy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's all common sense. It's that here's the tribunal, but I mean that's there's probably not much point in talking about that. Yeah, I mean to me, all of that makes sense, Ben. I think if anybody looks at that and thinks it's extreme or thinks it's unreasonable, then they're living on a completely different planet to everybody else in the country. I think I actually think it's a moderate policy. I don't think there's anything extreme about that at all. Anybody with any sense would look at that and go, "That's completely fair." Let me play this video, Ben, and I want to get your thoughts on this, because if it had come from anyone else, I mean, there's been an academic, David Betts, who's been talking a lot about this. Obviously, that's kind of his hobby horse. So you go, is he maybe a bit biased? But when someone like Richard Kemp says this, I just want to get your thoughts on this, Ben, because it is quite interesting.
Back in the old country, Britain, where I grew up, in the defence of which you proudly served. It seems to have completely lost its will to stand up for its culture, and it seems to be bending the knee to what many people say is immigration, but I actually think is Islamification of not just Britain, but Europe. But Britain's an example of that. What do you see its destiny now in the next 10, 20 years? Do service personnel such as yourself, who deployed so bravely overseas in the pursuit of protecting British interests, do they like what they see when they come back home?
I can't speak for servicemen generally, but what I can say is that British soldiers who fought in Afghanistan, they fought against the Taliban and other Islamic extremists. And there were more British people, British Muslims, serving with the Taliban, fighting on the side of the Taliban against the British than there were Muslims in the British Army during that period. That, I think, is an indication of the state of play. Things are going to get worse. Things have been getting worse, getting bad for many, many years, and they're only going to get worse. And no government, either the government now or no prospective government of the UK, has the guts to stop it. If they want to take strong action to prevent the Islamification of the UK, then it's going to mean big trouble for them. They don't want trouble. They look 4 years ahead. They will kick the can down the road to somebody else. And I think the end result of that is very likely to be civil war in Britain, where the indigenous...
Physical civil war.
Actual civil... I'm not talking about the American Civil War, uniformed armies. I'm talking about something more like Northern Ireland, but on a much more intensive scale, where you have the indigenous British and the some of the immigrant population and the British government all on three different sides fighting against each other. And if I'd be very surprised if that doesn't happen, because there's no prospect of the government, any government today, stopping this from occurring. And the big problem that British people have is they don't have political choice. We don't really live in a democracy. Whatever party you vote for, you get the same policies, and that applies also to the immigration and to the way in which the Islamic population is allowed to grow, and not just grow in numbers, but grow in dominance, and they're increasingly bold. There are now in Parliament, since the last election, there are something like 6 Islamist MPs, members of Parliament, who got elected on a Gaza platform in a British election.
Yeah,
and we're going to see much more of that in the next.
So, I mean, just your thoughts on that, Ben. I mean, I've got some thoughts, but I just want to hear what you think about that. Obviously, it's probably the first time you've seen it. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I completely sympathize with the concerns he's got. And what he's effectively forecasting is what will happen if those who are politically charged with protecting this country don't do their job. Eventually, the people will rise up. It'll either be what he described as the indigenous people rise up against those who they feel are assaulting them. And we're heading in that direction, undoubtedly. There is ethno-nationalism on the creep, quite dramatically increasing. And that's why people like Advance need to succeed. Parties like Advance need to succeed. We need to succeed so that we can sort this problem out peacefully. This problem that's being, about to kick off or whatever, we've got to sort it out peacefully. And I think you've heard me say that many, many times. It's got to be done peacefully to the maximum extent possible. No one welcomes violence. Violence doesn't get a proper result. We will take... some people say the French have never recovered from the French Revolution. And I think that's right, because it was such a violent experience that it's scarred their whole system. And we don't want that in the UK. We don't want that in the UK. We've got to do it in our British way, firmly, fairly, get the job done, but get it done before it becomes an intractable problem that explodes.
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent. I think one of my concerns is, Ben, no matter what you do, the far left and the Islamists will use it as an opportunity to be victims. So even if it's a very fair policy, and I'm not talking about normal Muslims, I'm talking about the Islamists, the sort of like this guy that's standing for election in Birmingham, that's an ex-terrorist. These guys, they will use it, and my question is, if there is an insurgency of sorts, or there is a kick, because I think one or two things can happen if we don't get elected.
Then Richard, zero tolerance.
Yeah,
zero
Yeah,
tolerance, and you
yeah,
hammer it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Because I think if we don't get elected, the insurgency will be from the indigenous people. I genuinely
yeah,
believe that. I think
I
that's
agree. Yeah,
I
I
think Richard
think
Kemp's absolutely right on that.
that's where
And
it's
if
going to come from. Yeah,
yeah, and then you're going to have, like you said, you're going to have the the Islamists will then radicalize more, and then
yeah.
you'll have the government like they were in Northern Ireland,
Well, you
standing
see,
piggy in the middle.
you've lived through this in Northern
Absolutely.
Ireland. You
That's why I
know
got
how everyone gets worse.
Ben.
Yeah,
That's whenever I started doing this, I saw the parallels. In fact, when again, I don't want to talk about me, but when I came to Northern Ireland in the 1980s, I was serving with lads from Middlesbrough, Bradford, all those northern towns that had these big, you know, growing Pakistani Muslim communities that were causing trouble even then. That Salman Rushdie, people forget the Salman Rushdie thing happened in 1989 where they started
I
getting,
know.
yeah, and so we looked at that as young soldiers and went, this is going to happen in England in 20 years' time. And it wasn't 20 years' time. I think it was 18 years. It was 2005 when the 7/7 bombings happened. So
Yeah.
so I think I don't think we can minimize it, and I don't think it can be done totally peacefully. I think there will be an insurgency either when the immigration policies kick in by the hard left and certain sections of the Islamists, and if we get a reform government that are not going to do anything about it whatsoever, there's going to be a lot of disappointed people, and I think
Yeah.
that will give rise to arrested
But I
population.
think if that happens, then I think the quickest way to peace is actually zero tolerance. It's when you don't take a completely zero tolerance attitude that it ferments, it gets worse, and then you get tit for tat. There's just got to be an absolute clampdown at that point. Right? Okay, we're not tolerating this. Bam.
Exactly, and again, it's something that I spoke to, going off a bit off script, but I spoke to David Rhodes about this several months ago. You might be in a situation where you need to raise, a government, a British Army run regiment that is a home guard, a home defence regiment, a bit like they had in Northern Ireland with the Ulster Defence Regiment, to actually, if it does kick off, you've got a force there to deal with it, because the police wouldn't be able to deal with it, and the military are always
Yeah.
deployed all over the world. So it's just it's a bit of a curveball, but it's something I think that probably
Yeah.
needs to be needs to
Well,
be
if
thought about.
if what you fear and what Kemp fears transpires, then it has to be dealt with.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, I
yeah.
hope it doesn't transpire,
I
but you
hope it
have to be
doesn't.
prepared for it. Yeah.
I sadly think something's going to happen. It's just a question of how the government of the day manages what happens. And like you say, zero tolerance is the best policy. And again, the reason I'm saying that, if you even look at what's happened with ICE in the States, it hasn't been plain sailing, and they're not making as much
No.
progress as quickly as they want to, because of all the pushback, and they don't have the same issue that we have with
But
lots
I
of
think
radicals.
the mainstream media in the US are painting ICE as being much worse than ICE is, because they're trying to undermine the narrative. But I also understand for every one deportation that's taking place, four are leaving voluntarily from the
Wow.
US.
Yeah.
So Trump is making an impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
People
No,
most
no.
yeah.
I'm not critical. I'm not critical of ICE, but I'm just. It's the same thing, because you'll have exactly the
Yeah.
same here. The mainstream media, whatever government, whether it's us, Restore, Reform, whoever it is, whatever government, whoever forms the next government, or even some sort of mishmash of loads of different parties, whatever it is, when you start making those hard decisions, the media, the left, the establishment, it's going to be
Well,
difficult.
just remember, Richard, but just remember, under our policy, we declare a state of emergency
Yeah. Yeah.
at the
Uh,
beginning of our parliament under
yeah.
Advance UK. We declare a state of emergency. So we will be taking, firm action.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what needs to happen. Okay, so let's move on to North, from one civil war to another. Let's move on to Northern Ireland. So we're not at civil
Yeah.
war anymore, thankfully. So obviously there's a lot of enthusiasm for advancing Northern Ireland. I don't know what the numbers are looking like now. I know, I think you shared them with me when we were chatting, that there's quite a lot of people have actually joined. Do you know the figures off the top of your head? How many members we've got in Northern Ireland at the minute?
I don't know. I should have looked at them before coming on, but last time I looked, it was like 600 members and about nearly 700 members and supporters. Um, I'm sure it's gone up since then. Our membership has continued to go up at a reasonable rate, by the way. It's accelerating.
Yeah, which is great, and I think as people see the policies and see more and more of what's happening, it's gonna be a great it's just gonna get bigger and bigger. Can I just
Yeah.
show you this? I sent you this document earlier on today, Ben, and this is just I've been working on this with a few of the advanced people across in Northern Ireland, and I just want to run this by you. Like I say, I showed you it earlier, but I think it's quite an interesting sort of idea. So it really feeds into the policies you already spoken about anyway. So it's the Northern Ireland People's Promise. It's a bit like the pledge. So in other words, people, but it's a lot simpler. It's just these 3 points. So all the people sign up to it, and hopefully all the politicians sign up to it. But this could be, if you guys wanted it, something that Advance UK go, yeah, we can own that, and that can
Well,
be,
that's 100% consistent with our mission statement and
yeah,
policies.
yeah,
100%.
exactly. And nobody's
I'll
done it.
sign it. I'll sign it now.
Yeah,
Send
there
it
you
over.
go. So we got the endorsement of
Yeah.
Advance UK.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to work on that sort of stuff. And I think the way that's written as well, Ben, I think we've done it in a way that it's not sectarian at all. It's
No.
talking about our shared Christian identity and culture. So Roman Catholics and Protestants can buy in equally to that.
Yeah.
And again, this idea of respecting everybody's culture, respecting Irish culture as much as you respect British culture, but keeping that within the framework of being within the United Kingdom and making
Yeah.
staying in the UK very, very desirable to Roman Catholics, because I do think there's a massive push by the deep state, both sides of the border and in Westminster, to try and shunt Northern Ireland out of the UK. And you're probably one of the only English politicians who's actually standing against this and saying, no, we will not bend on this. So what are your thoughts on obviously this idea and the
Yeah.
whole idea of what we do in Northern Ireland?
So, I mean, my thoughts on it are that there's definitely a move to remove Northern Ireland from the United Kingdom. And that's part of a move to destroy the United Kingdom, to destroy our existence. It won't stop at Northern Ireland. That's why people like Farage need to wake up. If Northern Ireland goes, the next thing will be Scotland, and before you know it, you don't have you don't have anything. You don't even have Great Britain, and that I cannot countenance that. So the only way to prevent it is to take all the steps that we've discussed, including getting rid of that. I mean, getting rid of the IRC board as part of our culture policy and part of our immigration policy. And as I also say, it's quite interesting. We saw nationalists and unionists coming together over what's going on in Northern Ireland. And I'm sure we will have the Irish citizens from the Republic of Ireland completely on side with what we're doing, completely on side. And they will say, fine, we get it. You want to restore your country. We want to restore our country. Can we please cooperate? You can get rid of the IRC border. We don't care. Get rid of it. You have Northern Ireland. That's yours. Actually, can we come closer to you? Because the EU's a bunch of nutcases. That's what's going to happen.
I hope so. I mean, the problem we've got in the Republic of Ireland, that politics is totally dominated by swivel-eyed lefties. I mean, it's probably one of the most anti-Semitic countries on the planet. And at the minute,
But the Irish people are waking up.
oh, they are.
They?
They are waking up. But the problem they don't have, and this is where, again, this is just me brainstorming. There could be
An advanced UK and
advanced
Ireland.
an advanced island. So we need to find a Ben Habib in south of the border who will pick up the mantle and say, because the reality is, because so much has time has elapsed now between the end of the Troubles and where we are now. There's a lot of cooperation. Even the criminals are cooperating with each other now. So the drugs gangs in Northern Ireland are joining together and committing cross community criminality, which never used to happen before. It used to be the paramilitaries of different shades that were involved in all that sort of stuff. So there is a change in Northern Ireland, but again, there are issues specifically in Northern Ireland with things like a perception that there's two-tier policing, and it's not a perception; it's a fact that nationalists and Republicans have been given way. The balance has shifted. In the 60s, there probably was discrimination against certain people in certain, nationalist communities, there was obviously always this idea that the RUC was against the Republican communities, because obviously they were the ones that were mainly attacking them. But there's a perception now among grassroots unionism, Protestant unionism, loyalist communities, that is shifting. That now the boot's on the other foot, and the jackboot is on the neck of the Protestant unionists as opposed. So those are all things. They're very nuanced that need to be looked at by any party that's going to try and operate in Northern Ireland. And also, the unionist parties have massively just cast the working class Protestant and unionist communities on the scrap heap, and they come for them for votes once every 4 years, but they seem to do very little in terms of looking at what the grassroots people in those communities looking at. So I think those are things, as a party that wants to be a unionist party, you've got to win over the hearts and minds of the working class unionists.
I mean, I think, I don't know if you've heard me say this, Richard, but I don't think any politicians got any place in politics in a democracy if they don't stand for the working and middle classes in Northern Ireland, Great Britain, wherever, because it's the majority of people in the country are working in middle class. You have to stand for them. If you're standing for some other, the elite or some sectarian position, I mean, I'm afraid it doesn't wash. So you will see in our economic policies that we are entirely orientated. You saw a glimpse of it in our immigration policy. We're entirely orientated to the working class and middle classes. I don't want to forget the middle classes, because our middle classes now are actually much, much poorer than you might expect from a middle class. The entire country is much poorer. And so we need to look after the middle and working classes. When I say working classes, I mean people who are actually working. Sometimes people think, well, if you're coming from an economically disadvantaged background, you're working class. Well, in my mind, you've got to be prepared to work to be part of middle class. Someone said, working class. Someone said to me, Angela Rayner is working class. And I thought to myself, well, I'm not sure she is, because she plays the system. She got an extra house when she wasn't meant to have one. She avoided stamp duty. She's playing the flipping system. If she was once working class, she ain't working class any longer.
I think that's very true. It's like a lot of these footballers, they play very much on the working class roots, and when it comes to it, they've been living a privileged life since they were 14 years old. They've been lifted and laid, had the best healthcare and everything else.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with. But then they've got to acknowledge the privilege that they've had and try and return the privilege, or at least give people the opportunity to earn their own privilege. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Exactly. I was thinking Gary Neville and Gary Lineker there, the two dreadful Garys. They're both lefty, but they play the working class card when it suits them. But most of the working class want nothing to do with it, with the two Garys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So. Anyway, Ben, we're running out of time, so I'm guessing you want to do an hour. I've got a few super chats here. I just want to go through them. Hopefully, they're all from friendlies, and I haven't got any baddies in the super chats.
Was this live? This was live.
This is live. Yeah. This is live. Yeah. So let's just see what people have got to say. So okay, Debbie, my loyalties with Ben and Advance UK forge ahead. That's great. That's the sort of super chat
Thank
we want.
you. Yeah.
Hope Ben won't sacrifice the college in any collab. Well, no. Ben. No, it's just no. It's not going to happen. The college is the college, and it's not going to go anywhere soon. Okay. I thought all the speeches on the 7th were fantastic and detailed. May I suggest doing a short summary of highlighting the points? That's actually a really good idea for whoever's doing the social media, Ben. If somebody can get those things chopped up and get them everywhere, I'd
love you to do that, Richard.
Thanks, Ben. Actually, I'll talk to you about it afterwards. I've got a very good volunteer who's really keen, young man, and I said, now you've got to understand. It's one thing about Advance UK. There are no wages. We're all volunteers. So if you want to do this, you're doing it for nothing. And he said he would. So I'll talk to whoever's in charge of that afterwards. Okay. But 3 to 5 minute chunks. Yes. CO2 lad. That's a great idea. Can I ask Ben to clarify what he meant when he was discussing his stance on Quran and King Charles? Ben stated it was the word of God. I'm fully supporter and truly believe in Advance UK.
So the Quran. So the challenge I think Islam has, and I've said this repeatedly, and I've thought this all through my life, is the challenge Islam has is that the Quran for the Muslims was dictated to...
Can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
I think that's the key. And I did pick. I remember that actually. I think that was quite a while ago. That interview. And I think what you said, it's the word of God. And you didn't say to the Muslims, but what
To the
what?
Muslims.
Yeah, to the Muslims,
Yeah.
not to me, not to you, but to the
No,
Muslims. Yeah, that's
no.
and that's a
So the
clarification, which is
Quran,
good.
for
Yeah,
Muslims, the Quran is the word of God because it's been dictated by God via Gabriel to Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad. And if you say it's the word of God, if that which is what the Muslims believe, then it's perfect. It's incapable of being improved, and that's when it becomes unbending, and that's when it becomes challenging for it to modernize and evolve. Christianity's greatest strength, and I'm afraid one of its greatest weaknesses, has been its preparedness to evolve and change and accommodate modernity. Islam is unbending, and I think the roots of that are in the Quran, because the Quran is apparently the word of God.
yeah, and I think this is the thing to clarify. And I don't want to say I'm speaking for Ben, but it's the word of God to Muslims. We're not
To Muslims,
Muslims.
Sorry,
We're not
forgive me.
Muslims.
I
We
thought that
are not
was.
Muslims.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're not
yeah,
Muslims.
yeah.
So that's something that people need to have clarity. Because again, yeah, I think that's a really important point to a Muslim. In the same way, the Bible's the word of God to a Christian, the Quran's a word of God to a Muslim. And the problem with the Quran is it is open ended. So people talk about the violence in the Bible. The New Testament is not a violent book.
No.
You can pick out obscure verses like um, you know take two swords with you and all that sort of stuff. But that's not about going and waging jihad. Whereas the Quran has over 100 verses of the sword, which is an open text. It's not a closed
Yeah,
text.
I mean, fundamentally, Jesus died for us.
Exactly.
It's a religion of self-sacrifice rather
Yeah.
than muscular conquering, if you see what
Yeah.
I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, that and again, that's something I've said, Ben. That the difference between Islam and Christianity. In Christianity, God dies for us. In Islam, you die for God. That's the difference.
You've said
And
that, have you? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's that. I think that's very true. So yeah, I get what you're saying, but again, I think that's a good clarification to make. To the Muslim, it is the word of God. To us, it ain't.
But
It's as simple as that.
if viewers have got time, they should go and see the debate that I did at the Oxford Union, I think in November 2024, on Islam and democracy, and
Yeah.
they'll get a full kind of picture on how I see
I'll
it.
try when you jump off, Ben. I'll stay on the channel a little bit, and what I'll do, I'll grab that video and I'll put the link just on the screen there so people can go and have a look at that. Oh,
Sure,
was it
thank you.
Oxford Union? Was it
Oxford
Ben? Yeah,
Union,
Oxford Union.
November
Okay,
2024.
Oxford,
Yeah,
November
my debate, what I said wasn't
2024.
received very well, but
I'm sure.
nor was the second debate that I had there.
Do you know what? Tommy got a rapturous response when he went to Oxford Union in
Did he?
24
Well,
2014. What a difference 10 years makes, Ben. But love you, Ben. I'm behind you all the way. God bless. That's great. And again, these are the comments that I've been getting all week from people saying, look, don't bend, don't compromise on what you guys believe. Keep going. So there's a lot of
I'm not.
encouragement.
We can't bend. We
No,
have to
we
just keep
can't.
going. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
keep going. And I think, I genuinely think, because we're in that little Goldilocks zone, that I think we'll win in the end. I genuinely
I
do.
think we'll come through.
Yeah,
Absolutely, I do.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Whether
do.
it's in 3 years' time or 7 years' time or whatever it's going to be,
We're going to come through in the
we're,
next year.
we're going to save the country. We've no option.
We are coming through in the next year, Richard.
Yeah. Oh,
I
absolutely.
don't. Yeah.
No, I agree. 100%,
Yeah.
100%. And there's a lot. Look at what's happened in the past. That since we became registered. Look at what's
Yeah.
happened. I mean, I watched the different meetings up until the one in the Emmanuel Centre, and the Emmanuel Centre was the crown jewel of those meetings, and it was interesting. It was in a church as well. That was an interesting choice of location
Yeah.
when we're talking about Christian heritage and culture. Was that
And
by
they were
design, or was that
superb.
just?
I mean that's because they're more sympathetic to people
Yeah,
like us. But
yeah.
they were really strong. They had lots of threats. I think I mentioned
Oh,
in
I'm
my
sure.
speech. They'd
Yeah,
been threatened and they stood firm and let us speak.
yeah, yeah. Which is, oh, here's one. How can I get more involved with Advance in Scotland? What can we do about that, Ben? Can we
Yeah,
put
so
this lady in touch with someone?
yeah, have you got contact details for Michelle Ballantyne and Mark Tunnicliff. They're the regional directors.
I met Mark actually at
Yeah.
I met Mark in at the event. So
I'll send you his
if
contact
if you said,
details, and
because I know
perhaps you
Mark,
could
'cause
get.
I've spoken
Yeah.
to Mark and Angelina. You're on my channel quite a lot, so if you go to the into the description, there's an email address. Send me an email through that email with your email, and I'll put you in touch with them. Now you know what I'm like with email; it might take a month for me.
No,
No, it won't. I'll do it quicker. I'll do it quicker. I'll do it. But you know what I mean. Like people know what I'm like with email.
Their contact details may be on our website.
Yeah, that's
Go
probably
and have a look at the website,
Yeah.
advanceuk.org.uk, and it
Yeah.
should give you a list of who the regional directors are.
There you go, and you can feel free to get in touch with me, Angelina, if you need to. But through the advanced website, it's probably going to be the best bet, because people will be checking the email there a lot more diligently than I check mine. So, advanced needs more social media presence. I actually agree with that. I do agree with that.
I agree. I agree too.
And again, that's what there is a guy volunteering, but I think we need an army. We need an army of bots. Human bots that'll basically get out there and not spam people, but let people know the good news about what we're doing. Okay, we'll make this the last super chat of the day. Has Ben seen Paul Burgess' video reference leaving advanced Ben views and Paul's comments on the call?
Yeah, I love Paul to bits. He's a really lovely man, and I've got no issues with Paul. But Paul is on a mission to prove, entirely rightly perhaps from his own personal perspective, he's on a mission to prove that there's no such thing as man-made climate change. And that's fine. I'm perfectly accepting of his view. But for a political party, we're less interested in whether or not man-made climate change exists. We're more interested in the policy, the energy policy we need in order to deliver the country to prosperity. And we kept wanting to just do the energy policy, and Paul kept wanting to go back to the debate about whether or not there was man-made climate change. And there was a slight issue there. And we have in our college a guy called Craig Walton, who is a professor and for things, amongst other things, climate change at Cambridge University. And there was a bit of friction there too. But it's just one of those things.
Craig is one of those people that you couldn't fall out with. I spoke to him for about an hour. Never spoken to him before. So amazingly bright, very
super bright guy,
but very friendly and very, very open to ideas. So
he's a good guy. So I love Paul, but he's on a kind of one-man mission, which wasn't entirely compatible with what we wanted to do.
No, Paul's great, and I've known Paul a long time as well. And I mean, I won't get into any of the internal advance. It's going to happen in every party, Ben. I mean, and the worst thing to do is get bogged down by that. You've got to just move on and say.
But I like Paul. I like Paul.
Yeah.
I've got no hard feelings about Paul. None.
Yeah. And that's the right attitude to have as well, because I'm too quick to fly off the handle and get angry with people. So you're a lot more gracious than I am, Ben. I can get angry too quick. But Ben, that was a great show again. I mean, every time you come on, it's just it's so easy to get truthful answers out. You never waffle. You never try and do a typical what the real politicians do. Have you noticed all politicians, when they're talking to people, they say "look" all the time? Have you noticed that?
I haven't said that.
Must be some sort of NLP thing. They say "look," and then they make some point that's totally irrelevant to what they're actually talking about.
Well, clearly I haven't been looking closely enough.
No. Anyway, great stuff, Ben. I will let you go.
Thank you, Richard.
What have you got on now? Are
you
you doing Dan Wootton this week? Is there anything going on with Dan?
No, I'm not. I might be doing Dan on Thursday. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Well,
Ben, great stuff, and let's do it again soon. And I think all the viewers have got a lot more idea what's actually happening, the direction we're going in. And I think that the truth of the matter is, stay the course, keep the faith. Advance is going nowhere, and we're in it to win it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you.
You too. See you soon.
Thanks,
guys.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.